What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Two Evil Eyes live watch along here on this awesome Saturday night. It's starting to feel like fall outside. That means Halloween's soon to come, which is, I guess you could probably guess, probably my favorite holiday. So looking forward to that. Football starts tomorrow, which go Pack go, and just kind of in the mood to watch Two Evil Eyes. Of course, Dario Argento just turned 83, I believe, just a couple of days ago. And I'll also be doing the stream with Grande on Grande's Graveyard coming up on Thursday, discussing George Romero's career throughout the 90s from 1990 to 2000. It's been a while since I've sat down and watched Two Evil Eyes, so I'm going to give it another shot tonight. It's been, like I said, it's been quite a while, and I've mentioned this a couple of times here on the channel, but it is probably, as of now, probably my least favorite Romero film. And we'll get into why, and maybe some things work better with viewing it with fresh eyes, perhaps. Maybe I like it less. I really don't know. It's weird because I love George, obviously, and I love Dario. And when I was first getting into George and Dario, probably when I was 12, 13 years old, first discovering all these films, I came across this one. I think I first heard about it. I guess it was probably that director series that they used to have. I can't remember what channel used to produce these, but it was called The Directors, and they would cover, like, there was one that covered George, there was one that covered Wes Craven. I think the Wes Craven one's actually included on the Hills Have Eyes set, I think from Arrow. If not, it's definitely on the one that Anchor Bay did a few years back. But I think that was the first time that I kind of discovered Two Evil Eyes and was just kind of like, holy shit, a movie directed by both George Romero and Dario Argento. Like, how'd this be bad? And it just, I don't know. It's never clicked with me for some reason. So I'm going to give it another shot tonight, fresh eyes, and I think it's the perfect time to do it. And I'll go ahead and get into it here in just a second. I think this is about a 2-hour long movie. It's two separate stories. If you haven't seen it, it's two separate stories directed by one by George, one by Dario, and they're both about an hour long. So yeah, we'll get into it here in just a second. I'll be watching the Blue Underground Blu-ray 3-disc release that they did. What year did they do this? 2019. It's got the cool lenticular cover. That's cool. Blue Underground does a great job. I love Blue Underground. We discussed it last week on the live auction. I was showing off some of the Blue Underground stuff, and they just do a bang up job. I mean, even some of their Blu-rays look better than a lot of companies' 4Ks, to be honest. It's I guess Will Lustig who of course directed Maniac and Maniac Cop, and huge lover of horror and all that. I guess he's kind of like the head honcho over there. So if they're doing something, it's a real labor of love from them. But anyway, enough about Blue Underground. What else was I going to say? Oh, we got some big news on the Twilight of the Dead front. Planning on, since we're going to be, just like I said, since this film is about 2 hours long, I don't want to be too long here before we get it started. But the Twilight of the Dead, of course, Romero's last, the treatment that he pretty much wrote for another Living Dead film, which is apparently going to get made. They have named a director, and we'll get into it deeper. I think I'll probably do another short live stream sometime this week, perhaps, just to kind of go over all the details, discuss it, look at the director, and see, if this guy's legit. And from what I actually have never seen any of the films that he's made, but I have heard of quite a few of them, and I've heard good things about him. So I would say that my enthusiasm level for this project probably went from about a 2. It may have pulled it up to a 4 right now. So we'll see what they do cast wise and all that. But I do think that they picked an interesting director. I will say that. So we'll get into that at the like I said, another stream or something sometime this week. Like I mentioned, I'll be doing Grande's Graveyard on Thursday. Sorry, I'm a little burpy. So look forward to that. I think that's going to be. What time does he usually go on? I know it's like 7 o'clock my time, so I guess 8 o'clock Eastern time. So check that out. We'll be talking, like I said, Romero throughout the '90s, and a lot of stuff to talk about. It's an interesting time for Romero because he had, it's kind of there's a lot you can discuss about the '70s, a lot you can discuss about the '80s, and the '90s was just kind of like this weird middle period before George became like, zombie guy, celebrity status type George. He was just kind of under the radar for a lot of the '90s. So can't wait to talk about that. That's going to be really, really fun. I can't wait to sit and have a discussion with Grande on his channel. Last week's auction went really, really well. Had a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody who participated or joined, watched. I hope you guys had a good time too. Got all the items in the mail. I know John Scolari messaged me earlier tonight saying that he got his. So hopefully everything gets to you guys safe and sound. If not, just let me know. Shoot me an email. My email's on the channel. So if you have any issues, just reach out, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. But yeah, had a lot of fun last week. And we've got some fun stuff coming up here in the next few weeks as well. I got some more videos to drop, doing some live streams, some interesting topics. And I've been toying with the idea of maybe having a guest on. I'm honestly, I don't fancy myself an interviewer per se. But honestly, like you can find interviews with a lot of the cast and crew from these films. I would love to get some that just that don't do a lot. I don't know if that's something that you guys would be interested in as well. Let me know in the comments. Feel free to leave a comment. Go ahead and like the stream if you would feel so inclined to do so. It helps something with the algorithm. I don't know, but apparently it's good to like something. So give me the thumbs up on this sucker. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you're a huge George Romero fan, I do this every week. I always have something up my sleeve, something to drop on the channel, some rare commentaries and documentaries, stuff like that. Anything I can get away with here on YouTube. I have gotten in trouble a couple times, but I do what I can. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to go ahead and just get out of the way before we start the stream. I feel like there was something else I should have touched on. I don't know. If I think about it, I'll blurt it out during the stream here. So right now I'm on the. If you want to watch along at home, however you enjoy these things, I'm on the menu page now. So I'm going to count down from 3. Say play. I'll hit play, and we'll get this underway, and I'll see how I feel about it. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, play. All right. And Achille Manzotti presents. That's a new one. Filmed by Dario Argento and George Romero. Now, I think originally, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Dario's original idea for this was to have 4 different directors and 4 different stories, kind of like just a more traditional horror anthology, I guess. I believe he mentioned John Carpenter as being one of the guys that he wanted, and John Carpenter either couldn't or wouldn't do it for whatever reason. And I want to say Stephen King as well. It was either Stephen King or Wes Craven, one of those two that Dario reached out to and couldn't get. But George... Oh, sorry, I'm already distracted about the film. But George, accepted and decided to do as well. But I do feel like the whole Edgar Allan Poe thing, I think this is more of a Dario passion project more so than it was George's, which is maybe why I've always enjoyed Dario's part more than George's, actually. I think those shots there at the beginning were... I think Dario did those by himself with a camera at one point. Uh, but yeah, we're starting out. This is the fuck. What is the name? I missed the title. I forget what this one's called. It's the facts in the case. Yeah, the facts in the case of Mr. Valdemar. I know it was something like that. It was some drawn out um, thing. But we got Adrian Barbeau, Remy Zada, E.G. Marshall. So some Creep Show alumni in this one. I think the budget for this thing was like $5 million, I believe. I know it was. It was not a success whatsoever. I don't think it barely came out in theaters back in 1990 when this came out. It was a very underseen and just kind of forgotten about film. I don't know why. I mean, it's one of those weird things. You'd think, George Romero and Dario Argento collaboration. But I know in the States, I think it was a very limited release, like maybe a weekend in New York or a weekend in Los Angeles or something. Here's E.G. Marshall, of course, from Creep Show. They're creeping up on you. Now, I always thought the premise of this one was really interesting. It's kind of cool seeing Adrian Barbeau and E.G. Marshall work together on this scene. It's a good way to kind of open this story is her in the cab or whatever rehearsing her line. So it's kind of giving you, kind of insight into what's going on here before we actually get to the scene where she's obviously trying to swindle her old husband out of his money. And she plays this part really, really well. So I think so. Edgar Allan Poe for me, I was never a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan. I never really got into him big time. And I feel like George was kind of the same way. Just listening to interviews and stuff that he did about this project. Like I said, I think it's why it feels more like an Argento passion project more so than it was for George. George, I mean, like me, I guess I kind of grew up with an appreciation for Poe, but I was never, I always thought that was more like gothy shit for whatever reason. But I do remember when, like in high school, I got really into. I think we read this in high school, like around Halloween time. Back in the day, around Halloween time would be like the one time a year where, your English teacher was cool with, letting kids read Poe and scary stories to tell in the dark, whatever that book was. But yeah, I think we read. The Telltale Heart, and it captured my imagination. I remember writing like a screenplay in high school for the Telltale Heart that I wanted to film with my little video camera. Um, I really got into that one. I think there is like the story's not in this, but I think there is like where it touches on that story coming up here. I think in Argento's version actually. But that was really the only time I ever really got heavy into Edgar Allan Poe, which we all know The Raven and stuff like that. But the Telltale Heart was the one that just kind of captured my imagination when I was a kid. I was like, oh, I want to do something cool with that. But yeah, I feel like George was kind of the same way. Had a surface appreciation for Poe's work, but wasn't as into it as Argento. Argento's always talked about Edgar Allan Poe, not even just for interviews and stuff like this, but his work in general. I mean, he was heavily influenced by Edgar Allan Poe as a kid. And you can tell a lot by Argento's taste and what he does. The whole hypnotism thing here in this one I thought was just kind of interesting. Now George, I don't think George is that big of a fan of Two Evil Eyes either. I don't think he felt like it was what he wanted it to be in the end. Which I think is an interesting thing about this film is that the two separate stories, George's story and Dario's story, it almost feels it. This feels more, as opposed to a horror anthology, it feels more like a double feature or something. That is the one cool thing I always appreciated about this is that it is two separate directors doing two separate stories in two completely different styles. Like Dario's version feels like an Italian Dario film. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I could say that this story feels like a George film per se. Um, I always like Pat Boob is a fantastic editor, but I always feel like George lost something in his style when he gave up editing. When he stopped editing his own films, I felt like that was George's style, which is why I always consider George one of the best editors of all time. Because I feel like his style was so rooted in his editing style, just the quick cuts and a lot of shots, a lot of setups. Um, and I feel like when he when he handed the keys over to other people, like I guess right around probably, well, he edited Something to Tide You Over and Creep Show. I'm trying to think, was he? I think he was either one of, if not the one of the editors for Night Riders. Um, and Day of the Dead's fine. I think that one works. But I think once past Day of the Dead, I don't know if it was just the budgets were bigger. He was working with different people. Um, I know he cinematography wise. I know he used to kind of butt heads with some of his cinematographers during this time, especially what's his face from The Dark Half. I don't think George wanted him, but the studio kind of was like, "Hey, this dude's he won an Oscar or something at one point." Same thing they did with Timothy Hutton. George actually wanted Michael Rooker to play the Thad Beaumont George Stark part in The Dark Half, but the studio wanted a name. And Timothy Hutton, I think, was nominated for an Oscar or something a couple of years previous, so they kind of, you know. So I don't know. I guess this feels like George. Theme wise, it definitely feels more like a George film. It's all about greed and the dead coming back to life and seeking revenge on the living. Um, so thematically, it does feel a lot like a Romero film, but I think stylistically, like Argento's films, they always feel like an Argento film. They just have two completely separate ways of doing things. I feel like around this time, George was more trying to mold himself into what I don't know, maybe the studio system kind of wanted at the time. Um, I don't know. That would be something I would have loved to have asked him around this time of how he felt, like why he had, which I know a lot of his usual crew had started moving elsewhere and doing other things, so he kind of had to do what he could, but I don't know, he just kind of like at this point. So Rami Zada, that's he was just at the Living Dead weekend Evan City last year, which the Evan City Living Dead weekend's coming up next month already. It's crazy. Um, I think that was like one of the first conventions he had ever done. There's a graveyard in the house. What's up, my man? I am very stoked for Thursday. I think it's going to be a really fun discussion. I've been doing a lot of research and going back. That's kind of why I'm doing the Two Lies watch along tonight. It's been so long since I've seen it last, and like I said, it's kind of probably my least favorite Romero film. So I feel like it was a good time to kind of go back and rewatch it, see if my take changes on it. Grande, I'd agree. Romero is the best editor ever. To me, I mean, he's, I'm sure you can. I'm sure somebody somewhere can name, some Oscar nominated editor or something that did a bunch of things. But in terms of just style and, um, you know, uh, just doing something completely different with what, because I mean George George started, editing, um, commercials and industrial films and shit like that. So he pretty much just took that what he learned there and transferred it over to film. And it's we see it all the time now. Quick cuts and this and that. But I just think he was revolutionary, um, with his editing. Uh, New face in the house, TCCK Films. What's up, my man or lady? Good to see you in here. I'm glad you could join me. We are watching Two Evil Eyes. And right now, our Adrian Barbeau is running a bath. And there's E.G. Marshall again. It's kind of interesting, this time period of George as well, just starting to work with more Hollywood actors. I mean, through the 70s, I mean, did he ever work with a name, from Night of the Living Dead through Night Riders? I would say. I mean, Creepshow is kind of the first one, like, with Adrian Barbeau and E.G. Marshall, and of course Leslie Nielsen and Ted Danson, which I think Ted Danson kind of became more of a name after the fact, but um, I don't know. I guess my perception of George was always as George, the independent spirit, guerrilla filmmaker. And these are great actors and great performances, but I guess I just always preferred the no-name actors personally. Just one of the gripes I guess I had with Land of the Dead when it came out, which, looking at financially and from the studio's aspect, it made sense that you would want some kind of name in it. At least they put, Dennis Hopper in it. Love Dennis Hopper. I was really into Blue Velvet. I was just watching that movie on a loop at that point, I think. When I heard that Dennis Hopper was going to be in it. Missing some names. I know Christine Romero shows up here at some point, which George always made a habit of putting her in his films. She's even a Bruiser, I think. And she's the woman at the party with the bird cage on her head. And she's going to be in Lexington next month, which I just recently met her at Living Dead Weekend in Monroeville in June. And I've told my story of meeting her and her chastising me for smoking. But that's a name. Talking about getting guests or whatever on the show, like that would be a name that I'd love to just have a little conversation with. It's Christine. I know she doesn't do a whole lot, and it's probably not going to happen ever. But I'd just love to get her perspective on George's career and the work that she put in. Which, because a lot of, I mean, you can get into the idea of the muse, an artist's muse. I mean, you can pinpoint the moment that he met Christine, and they kind of fell in love. And George's work, you know took took it to a new level at that point. I mean, from Martin to Dawn, Night Riders. I mean, what a to Creep Show. I mean, there's like a 5. I put Day of the Dead in there. It's a 5-film, chronological set there that you could tell George was just at his on top of his game. And I think you owe Christine a whole lot of credit, for that. And you can kind of pinpoint the moment that they started the family, and Christine started having some kids, and you can tell she kind of started to fade out of the production aspect and kind of take care of the kids more than be the assistant director or anything like that. Grande would love to see me interview her. He says she was very quiet on the Martin panel. Wish she said more. Yeah, I think, and I think that's one reason why it's probably not likely that I would ever get a chance to kind of just sit down and interview her on here, because I don't think she does this kind of stuff. She's pretty private now, I guess is what you'd say. Which I do think she ended up. I think she's partners with. I want to say one of the guys who owned the Monroeville Mall back in the day. I think I could be completely wrong about that, but I feel like I remember hearing that somewhere. But she's the nicest lady, and I'd love to have her on here. And I've showed nothing but respect, but I'm fine with it if it never occurs. Like I said, I'm not much of an interviewer, so I would just want to just kind of talk. That would be what I would want to do. I'm not, which I don't know. Maybe I am. I've never done an interview, so what the hell? This is Bingo O'Malley, who plays the corpse here, I guess. And of course, he was in Night Riders. He's been in quite a few things for George over the years. Which he was the sheriff in Night Riders. What else was he in? I don't know. It's escaping me off the top of my head, but that's a name you should definitely know in the Romero lore. TCCK Films Dawn of the Dead is my 3rd favorite film of all time. Well, you're in the right place, sir, because that Dawn is my number 1 far and away favorite film of all time. What's 1 and 2? What's your 1 and 2? That's a good question. You get to know each other here. Yeah, I don't trust people who don't like Dawn of the Dead, so it's good to. I just feel like they're missing something. I don't know. So I guess basically the idea of this story, if you haven't seen it or trying to watch it at home or whatnot. So basically, Adrienne Barbeau's character is married to this old rich man, and the rich man is dying. I guess he's Mr. Valdemar. I don't know. He's dying, but he's not dead yet. But before he dies, she has to get his approval that he gets all of his assets and everything and all his money. And Remy Zada is her lover, and he's in on it because he's a hypnotist, and he's trying to hypnotize this dying old man into, signing off on this paperwork so she gets all the money, and eventually he dies under hypnotism, and somehow that leaves him in limbo somehow. I don't know. It's an interesting concept, I will say. But I think the thing that, like I said, George wasn't the biggest fan of his part, at least. And one of the reasons he said, which I'm just kind of watching it with subtitles here. I'd like to go back and rewatch it with the actual audio. That was the biggest thing that he just was not a fan of, was he didn't get a chance to really do an audio mix, his audio mix on it. It was kind of, I think, taken back to Italy and done whatever they did with that. So I think that was his biggest complaint with this film, was just he the audio just doesn't work for him. So I'd like to go back and listen to it at some point. TCCK Films, number 1's The Shining, number 2 is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can't argue with that. I mean, that's I mean, The Shining is just, there's no other film like it. And I love Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick is like the one filmmaker that I can think of that you could make an argument for as having directed the best film in every genre. You know what I mean? Like you could make the argument that the best science fiction film of all time is 2001: A Space Odyssey or A Clockwork Orange. You could make the argument that the greatest horror film, as you know are shooting here, the greatest horror film ever made is The Shining. You can make that argument, and you couldn't. You know, the greatest. Some people would say like maybe the greatest comedy of all time is Doctor Strangelove, which I think that's a hilariously depressing film to me. But you know, I just think the greatest war movie of all time. You can make the argument that Full Metal Jacket is the greatest war movie of all time. Maybe my favorite war movie of all time. So I absolutely love Kubrick. So I can't argue with The Shining. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I've said this before, is the greatest horror film ever made. There's never been a film like it before or after, and it's been tried thousands of times. They've tried to capture what Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original Texas Chainsaw, captures, and it's never been duplicated. It's yeah. So I can't argue with either one of those. You have a fantastic list and fantastic taste in movies. So I'm glad to have you here, my man. Appreciate you dropping in. But yeah, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I haven't played the video game yet. There's like a video game out. I don't really do video games too much anymore. I think I've kind of aged out of video games at this point. I just don't have the time for it. They're also fucking time consuming. Now, if I do play a video game, it's something that I can kind of do and enjoy for maybe an hour, and then kind of put it down and go tend to things, like a Madden or like a NASCAR game or something, just something you can do. But like a lot of games I'd love to try, but I just know that it's so involved now that I would just lose so much of my time to playing the shit. In time, I just don't have a lot of time these days. I'd rather much more spend my free time doing this. But it looks cool. So at this point, Bingo O'Malley has died. They've stashed him in the freezer. And Adrienne Barbeau is about to have a mental breakdown. But she got the money, so there's that. Now, interesting thing about this, I would think, because this, like I said, the original concept, Two Evil Eyes, was a concept that Argento came up with. I mean, like I said, this is definitely more of an Argento passion project than it is in Romero's. So you would think, he would want to shoot it in Italy, but actually Argento ended up coming to Pittsburgh and shooting this in Pittsburgh. Which is why, so I'm one of those guys that has, my physical media collection. I got 2 shelves filled with all of my Romero stuff, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, whatever I got. It's over there. And the rest of my stuff's over here, alphabetical order, typical. That's why I've always kind of gone back and forth with, do I consider Two Evil Eyes a Romero film or an Argento film? I mean, it's both, but where do I put it in the scope? Do you guys, I don't know if you, let me know in the comments, do you guys have this, ever have this issue, especially with Two Evil Eyes? Because to me, it feels more like an Argento film, but I keep it in my Romero collection, maybe because it was made in Pittsburgh. Tom Savini does the special effects, which we'll talk about the effects here in a minute, because right now we're still kind of that's the thing about, I feel like this story's a little slow. it's kind of a slow build. So it kind of, there's not a lot going on. It's a lot of dialogue back and forth right now, kind of building up with what's to come. But so yeah, I don't know. I've always considered it to go in the Romero pile, which I guess anything for me, if Romero had anything to do with it whatsoever, I'm kind of putting it in the Romero section over here. So, but so yeah, that's but there's been so it's kind of funny that Argento came to the United States to shoot this. I think he was just kind of wanting to come to Pittsburgh to shoot a film. Um, but it is interesting. I remember hearing a story. Um, it may be on like documentary on this or there, an interview or something. But I remember hearing the story that Argento, when he came to the United States, I mean, he fell in love with buffalo wings. Um, and I remember that I laughed so hard when I heard that because now I have this mental image of Dario Argento in 1990, who was probably 100 pounds soaking wet with a brick in his pocket, with the long hair and just this wild Italian, just going to fucking town on some buffalo wings. And I don't know why that's funny to me, but it's a hilarious visual to think of Argento just fucking gnawing down on some fucking buffalo wings and having an Iron City or something. Because you think of Argento and you think like, oh, he's Italian, red wine, and he's blah blah blah. But there's actually I think it's Savini has it. There's some behind the scenes video um, of Argento on the set of this, and he's just like playing football in the street, and he's got like his uh, maybe like a Pittsburgh Steelers shirt on or something. Like he totally came over, was just like loving being here, and just kind of, as they say, when in Rome, right? So, but it's hilarious watching him like throw a football and go for a pass, and then just to top that off with the idea of him just like fingers covered in buffalo sauce and just going to town on a fucking wing. I couldn't help but crack up thinking about that when I heard that. Being reminded about the soup. Yeah, my fiance made vegetable soup tonight, and I'm being reminded to make sure to put it in the fridge before I go to bed. So I'll do that. Which, if you're watching, which I highly doubt it. She doesn't watch or give a shit about any of this stuff. So, um, but yeah, don't let me forget, guys. Put the soup up. Because I forgot last time. And that wasn't fun. So Adrian Barbeau is hearing the voice of Bingo O'Malley in the freezer here. Trickling continues. Well, I say, the thing about this film is it's kind of, I feel like it's a little too slow at times. It's a ghost. But I think George is just trying to build more suspense in this. I don't know. It's there's a lot of setup here. There's a lot a lot of exposition in this one. Where I think Dario's version, if I remember correctly, I feel like I remember his is a little. There's more shit happening. There's more gore, more effects to kind of draw you in first. Where this one just kind of starts. It feels. It actually kind of feels like like a daytime soap opera or something at first. But we do get to see Tom Atkins as a detective in this one, so I'm always down for that. I feel like 90% of Tom Atkins' career has been spent playing a detective. Let's see, TCCK Films. I filmed and edited a film at New York Film Academy recently, very much inspired by Dawn of the Dead. I'm not posted it yet, but I plan to post it soon. Hey, I'd love to see that, man. I know Grande is in here as well. Just finished shooting a short film of his own. So I love watching that stuff. I know Jay Reel. If you're familiar with Dead Pit, I know he just posted his new film Crystal. I believe I just watched that the other day. It's pretty interesting. I was pretty impressed with the quality of it actually. I haven't watched. I know he did a film Dawn or something not too long ago. I mean, I guess it was years ago. But in my lifetime, not too long ago. But yeah, I'd love to see it, man. When you do post it, shoot it over to me and I'll check it out. That's pretty awesome. I used to do little student films and stuff back in the day. Throughout my high school years, I was the kid. Hang on. Boop, boop. All right. I was the kid that went on Friday and Saturday nights, while everybody else is out partying, drinking, going to the football games or whatever. I spent that time with a camera and friends and cousins, and running around downtown Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and shooting movies. Covered in fake blood and all that. So yeah, I used to dabble with little films around there. I actually did the what was it? I mean, this was years ago. Kentucky Student Film Festival, where they screened our films and stuff at the Kentucky Theater in Louisville, and I came in second in that. So it was fun. I miss those days. I'd love to get involved in something like that again at some point. But like I said, time. I just and it sucks because the older you get, man, it's hard to to bring people together like you could when you were younger and everybody had all the time in the world. And now everybody's got families and stuff like that. And it's just kind of hard to get your crew back together. I felt like George Romero, or I felt like King Billy at the end of Knight Riders. Everybody was just kind of going around doing their own thing, and I'm like, I'm fighting the dragon. What's your film called, man? I'm looking forward to it. If it's very much inspired by Dawn of the Dead, I will definitely be interested in checking that out. So at this point, Barbeau is kind of losing her mind. I suck at character names, by the way. Yeah, so I usually just call characters by their real names, unless it's something I've seen a billion times. But I always love films that have liquor in a decanter or whatever they call it. It always makes them seem more villainous or something. I don't know. When the guy goes over and gets the decanter, would you like a drink? It feels more official. And I guess that's a good way to distinguish, classes in film. Rich people drink booze out of a decanter, and poor folks are always, sucking down a bottle of Jim Beam or something. When you're trapped in a mall and the world's coming to an end around you. Which, George, actually thinking about that now, I'm kind of just figuring that out. It's kind of funny in Dawn of the Dead when they first get to the mall and they first get some shit. They're drinking the Jim Beam straight from the bottle, basically in a paper cup. And by the end of the film, they're drinking gin out of the decanter because now they got everything. It's kind of okay. So I'm piecing shit together watching this. I don't know. This is how my brain works, folks. Good luck to you. So yeah, I was talking about Savini's effects work in this film, and actually the frozen corpse of Bingo O'Malley's character there. The head is it's actually a mask, which I was really surprised because it looks so real. I mean, it's like I said, I think Tom's, there's a lot more coming up. Tom's effects work in this, I think, is really underrated just because this film's pretty underseen and underappreciated, me included. I mean, like I said, it's probably my least favorite Romero film, but I think Tom was just like at his absolute peak of effects work at this time. It kind of feels like Tom got to a point where he just felt like this is as far as I can go with this. I want to try to transition into, directing or acting or something different, which is, I'd love to have seen Tom continue. But I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall when the 90s came around and the, the censorship and gore and whatnot. Because if you think about it, the 90s wasn't a very gory decade for horror. It kind of started again in the 2000s with some of the torture porn stuff. And I guess I kind of really opened the door for George to make Land of the Dead the way that it came out. But yeah, if you think about the 90s, I mean, the idea of gore was kind of passe or not really allowed at the time. Studios kind of cut that shit out. So it's understandable that Tom wanted to transition into something else just to prolong his career, if nothing else, which he did. TCCK Films. I have not titled it yet, but I'm planning on making a feature-length version called Dead on Ice, which takes place in an ice skating rink. I'm still thinking about what name I should name it. Dead on Ice. Okay. Takes place in an ice skating rink. Okay, you piqued my interest with that. I don't know. So is it a zombie film that takes place on an ice skating rink? Because that would be interesting. Is it a hockey film? Okay. Dead on Ice. Okay. Cool. Look forward to checking that out, man. Yeah, this story really drags at times. Okay, so yeah, both films are zombie films. Okay, cool. Very, very cool. Have there been any? I feel like the zombie genre just got beaten to a pulp by The Walking Dead. I think people were kind of burned out, which I kind of find it interesting that this is a time period where somebody would be interested in making another George zombie film. Because man, I can't really think of too many here recently. I don't know. I like to see somebody do something completely different with it. Kind of like I forget who was talking about it the other night, but every so many years, especially with something, I guess with every subgenre of horror, but with the zombie genre, every few years it would get reinvented and take on a new life. It starts Night of the Living Dead, kind of reinventing the idea of the zombie from like White Zombie and stuff like that back in the early days to kind of played out. It hit the Italian zombie genre with Fulci stuff and a lot of the stuff like City of the Walking Dead, City of the Living Dead, Zombie, um, the classic, one of the greatest horror films of all time, Hell of the Living Dead. Um, and then it kind of transitioned. And then we had Return of the Living Dead, which kind of reinvented the genre to the point where now everybody just assumes that zombies eat brains. Like that's, that's the thing now. And then, it kind of, there was that lull period through the 90s, and then we got 28 Days Later, which completely reinvented the zombie genre. And it pretty much every, in my opinion, maybe outside of George's, which there are still a lot of, just in terms of the way that they're filmed, the way the sound of the zombies. I feel like most every zombie film after 28 Days Later just kind of redid what 28 Days Later did, which, is fine. But I think when 20 Days Later came out, we never really seen a zombie film like that before, with the fast, just crazed, that wasn't what we thought of as zombies. And now every all of them are kind of like that. And 28 Days Later was just, to me, Danny Boyle's love letter to George. I mean, if you watch 28 Days Later, it's literally, it feels like all three of Romero's zombie films in one, in a lot of different ways. Anyway, I'll get back to Two Evil Eyes. I'm just rambling about zombie movies now. They're still talking. I mean, there's not a lot happening in this. I mean, I guess this is one that you kind of have to really focus on and follow. It's very talky. A lot of dialogue here between, and I guess that's the thing too, is that it's a lot of dialogue between two characters. This is like the My Dinner with Andre of Romero films. I don't know. I guess that's the thing too, that's why it doesn't. I've never been a huge fan of it. It's kind of hard to have a film where you have a lot of dialogue and a lot of back and forth, and it's really just between two characters in one location. Yeah, it's kind of hard to grab an audience with that, in my opinion. Even as great of an actress as Adrienne Barbeau is. But we got thunder and lightning, so I think it's going to start getting good. Like I said, it's interesting that this didn't get a wide release when it came out. I don't really know why. I don't know if there's an issue with the studio or somebody in charge wasn't a fan, but it doesn't seem like they really even tried with this film for whatever reason. And I'd actually love to see. Well, I guess we won't get to now, but would have loved to have seen a true something like this, but not connected to Poe or anything. Just a Romero story and an Argento story. Maybe if they did something like this in the late 70s, early 80s. I think at this time, I don't know, man. Horror was just in a weird place in general in 1990. which to me, 1990 is my all-time favorite year for film. And that's just personal preference. I'm not saying the best films ever made all came out in 1990. But if you go down the list and look at all the films that came out in 1990, and I put it together with the films that really inspired me and the films that I grew up on when I was a kid, they were all made in fucking 1990 for some reason. Felcher pointed that out to me at Living Good Weekend a couple of years ago because I was talking about the work he did on the Tales from the Dark Side Blu-ray, the movie that Scream Factory came out with. And I was just talking to him, because that's one that I grew up watching and loved as a kid. And it was on a videotape with Total Recall and Pretty Woman. And I watched all three of those over and over and over again. All three made in 1990. And Felcher was like, you were really into movies that came out in 1990. I was like, yeah, I didn't even really think of it that way, but yeah. Night of the Living Dead, 90, the Savini remake. Goodfellas came out in 1990. Just consider name movies that came out in 1990. Tremors, that was one I grew up on. I loved. 1990. Oh, and Adrienne Barbeau just got hers. How's my connection? I feel like my internet connection's sucking dick right now. It's kind of pissing me off. This internet's been just complete trash for the past couple of weeks for whatever reason. The corpse is alive and moving. He's killed Jessica, the Adrienne Barbeau character. Now he's coming for Raimi's son. I really don't know what the fuck this is about. It's, I mean, I get the idea, the concept, the story that they're doing here, but it kind of just takes a weird turn here at the end with the white bodysuit ghosts, creatures, or whatever. But we're not there yet. So Raimi Zada's character's going for the money now that Adrienne Barbeau's dead. So now, instead of 50-50, he gets it all, I guess. It's an interesting house. I know this house is still around. It's in Pittsburgh. I've known. I've known some people that have visited that location before. Not too sure where it is right off the top of my head, but I think we're about to see the first appearance of Mr. Tom Atkins here momentarily. Yep, there he is. Mustache and all. It's not a Tom Atkins, well, unless it's Halloween 3. But I think he kind of figured out that, well, no, does he have a mustache? No, it's Creepshow that he doesn't have a mustache, right? Yeah. I don't know. Either way, he looks weird without the mustache. I think he kind of figured out that the mustache was kind of the way to go, and he still has it to this day. So Tom Atkins has played a detective in this, Bruiser, Night of the Creeps, I believe he plays a detective. I don't know. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. I just always feel like Tom Atkins plays a cop or a detective character in these films. So now we're at this scene where I think Remy Zada, here comes the white bodysuit ghosts. Money's flying around everywhere. I'm not sure what this is supposed to mean, but I remember the scene in Document of the Dead where he goes to visit George on the set of Two Evil Eyes, and they're trying to get this effect to work, and where the hypnotizer thing pierces through the chest of this character and kills him. And it just wouldn't work because the flaps kept coming out instead of in. But now we're about to get that is a great effect. That does look fantastic. They did get it finally. But I was always confused when I saw that in documentary because I saw that before I saw this movie, and of course they had like a vacuum machine or something above. Of course they put the actor Remy Zada, under the mattress, then built like the torso up to his neck and all that, and filled the little part with blood. But they had like a little vacuum or something. They'd stick this little, triangular thing in there and drop it. And it would drop. And I was always like, what the fuck is, like, what are they doing in this? Like, I didn't quite understand what the effect was for, like what it was supposed to be until I saw this. And right now I just noticed that in the lightning, you can actually see one of the ghost hands or whatever holding the hypnotizer. That's what I'm going to call it, the hypnotizer. What do you call that thing? It goes tick, 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 tick. Is there a name or something for that? I'm sure it's something very obvious, and somebody out there's gonna be like, "This guy's a fucking retard." That's how I feel. You got it. There you go. Wait a minute. I just saw it pop up here. Metronome. Handyman. Thank you so much, sir. I think you're a new face. Good to see you in here, my man. Metronome. That's what it's called. Thank you very much. See, it is something very, very stupid and very simple that I should know right off the top of my head, but couldn't think of. And I used to play music, so I should know what the fucking metronome is. Okay. Appreciate it, handyman. You're a handyman to have around. It's Tom Atkins. Detective Tom Atkins. I don't know what his name is in this movie. It's just going to be Detective Tom Atkins to me. But, I guess he's looking around the room looking for... Oh, there he is. Zombie Remy Zada. Zombie makeup effects looking very much like the effects in Day of the Dead. A little too over the top, maybe, effects-wise, but hey. And the blood on the money. That's definitely very George. The blood dripping on the money. With on the triangle on the dollar bill. That's interesting. The metronome in this film was a triangle. So maybe George had a little something that make it look like the triangle on the back of a dollar bill. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into this a little too much. So yeah, now we're moving on to the Argento portion of this film. The Black Cat. And we start off with some... Now this is the way you start story. Like I said, I feel like Argento's portion's better, so I'm interested in watching this again. See if it holds up. But you start the film out with some great gore, Harvey Keitel, and a pair of knockers. You can't beat that. I love Harvey Keitel. That's a fantastic actor from around this time period. I mean, Reservoir Dogs, Bad Lieutenant. Gosh, he was in so much around this time. Great actor. This is a great effect. Some bush. The woman cut in half here with, I guess, the story that they pulled this from. Because I think that's the thing with these is that they kind of took elements from a lot of different Poe stories and just kind of put them into the film here in different ways. But I think this is the Pit and the Pendulum. I think this is kind of a callback to. Great camera shot there with the camera swinging like the pendulum, where you're going up and then you're going through the the middle of the severed body, or whatever you want to call it. And see, this looks, I mean, even down to like, you can tell just from like the credit font, this looks Italian. So you can definitely tell the difference between George and Dario's versions. And of course, Dario's always interested in you see a lot of photography and dark rooms and stuff in Argento's work, which sometimes always like Tenebrae. There's a scene, Cat o' Nine Tails, I believe, Four Flies on Grey Velvet. There's always a character developing film for some reason. Of course, the character in this is a professional photographer, and we're already in the dark room, and he's developing film. I've always found that fascinating. I think Dario's always had a thing for photography, which you can definitely tell just watching his work and the way he moves his camera. I mean, we just talked about the pendulum shot, going in between the body. Opera, the great shot with the crane going down, where you're supposed to be looking from the perspective of the bird, and it's going down the cranes. Dario is definitely more like we were talking about George as an editor earlier. I think that's like I said, that's where you can distinguish George's style is in the editing. Where I think Dario, you can definitely distinguish his style just from the shots and the creativity of the variety of shots that he could get, and just to think of this shit is incredible enough. And it's weird because Dario's much more of a loose filmmaker than I think George was at this time. Dario was always open to experimenting, and I've heard that he would kind of show up to set with kind of more energy than plans, really, where he's just more like, let's see what we can do today, and everything's got to be very particular, and everything's got to be in a certain way, and everything's got to go, but he was very, whereas George, like, I think as George is an editor, let's say, when he would show up to set, he would know exactly, this is what we need to film. These are the setups we need to get, because this is going to cut to this, is going to cut to this, is going to cut to this. So he was very planned out in his head. I know he's mentioned, I think it was a Document of the Dead, where he really storyboards more in his head, and then would just try to convey it. Like, I don't think George really did a whole lot of storyboarding per se, especially back in the early days. And it would just be all in his head. Like, he could just visualize, okay, so this shot's going to cut to this shot, and then this shot's going to cut to this shot. So, and then he would just convey that to the people he was working with. Whereas Dario is much more, experimental in that way. Where I don't think Dario ever edited any of his films. I don't think he was an editor per se. So yeah, two completely different styles of filmmaking on display here, and you can tell. You can definitely tell. Although, like I said, George's version, I don't know how much of a George film that feels, other than maybe thematically in terms of the greed and the dead coming back from the dead and coming to life and all that fun stuff. but you can definitely feel the difference between these two, which is why I said this feels more like a double feature as opposed to a true anthology. I'm gonna grab another Diet Coke here. I check my phone. I'm actually on call tonight, so I gotta check my phone every so often to make sure I didn't get a text or anything. No, I'm not a doctor. In case you were wondering. That'd be funny shit though if I just went with the story that I was a doctor and I was on call. But anyway. So Harvey Keitel is playing a professional photographer here. I can't remember what the woman's name. His girlfriend, wife, whatnot. I think she's a professional violinist or something. So again, you can see Argento loves art in general. We just talked about his love for photography. Obviously, the fact that you see a lot of it in his films, but music. I guess it's an Italian flavor. The love for the arts, and which I mean, but you got two main characters here. One's a photographer, one's a musician. You look at Fonderoso, the main character is a professional jazz pianist. I don't know if that's an Italian thing or an Argento thing to make, because I mean, shit, Suspiria is about a dance school. Art in general is a opera, perfect example. Argento loves artists and art, whereas I think Romero is more of the common man's horror filmmaker. Much more interested in the capitalism and greed and the root of all evil. So I think thematically you can definitely see the difference here in George and Dario's stories. So I think Harvey Keitel's trying to kill this fucking cat here. Which during this period, George was involved with, which is interesting, 2 stories about black cats that are evil and are trying to kill you or something. Because of course he wrote the Cat from Hell story in the Tales from the Dark Side movie, which again is one of my all-time favorite movies. That's probably the first horror movie I remember watching as a kid. I was probably like 3-4 years old at the time watching Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. So I guess this character is. I think his plan is to kill the cat and photograph it as art. And I think this is pretty true to the Poe story. Like I said, I'm not the biggest Edgar Allan Poe fan. Whereas I think George's story was an original story, kind of inspired by Poe. But you can definitely tell that Harvey Keitel is playing an artist in this film because he's wearing a beret. Typically, when you see somebody wearing a beret, they're either an artist or they're French. I was going to say that, or they would be gay, but I don't even think gay people would wear that anymore. Or you're Rusty from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Or you're one of the Griswolds in Europe. I don't know why. That's kind of an odd visual, seeing Harvey Keitel in a beret. It just doesn't. It doesn't fit somehow. I don't know. I just think of like Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction, or Reservoir Dogs. I don't feel like he'd be wearing a beret, but he's a true actor. Very versatile actor. So yeah, I think this is the scene. He's got the cat. He's positioning. It's like some art behind him. So he's going to kill this cat and photograph it. Which is interesting. There's films like Cannibal Holocaust, or films like that where they actually do kill and torture animals. But this is still kind of rough. I know the cat's not real. I know it's a fake cat. Although that was kind of funny. He just kind of the cat just kind of sticking his tongue out here, but yeah, I think like the PETA or whatever. I think it was in the documentary on this, hearing them, or Dario, or maybe it was Claudio Argento, talking about how PETA showed up and was making sure they weren't really killing the cats or anything. See, through like this, as I'm watching this, I'm just picturing Argento tearing into some drumsticks, some buffalo wings. I love the wing. It's crazy that Argento just turned 83 years old, and the man's working on another film, from what I hear. Absolutely crazy. 83. We got to wrap that man in bubble wrap. It's one of the last greats we have left. Him, John Carpenter. Who else from that time period still around? Cronenberg, absolutely. Cronenberg will live to be 150 though. The dude looks fantastic for his age still. Savini's another one that'll probably outlive me. He was hit by a fucking car like 3 or 4 years ago, and was like fine in a matter of weeks, maybe. Back doing conventions and stuff. It's like, I guess you'd expect that from a guy who spent a lot of his life getting hit by cars and falling off motorcycles and jumping off roofs and shit, and balconies. So Harvey Keitel is now drinking and meeting his wife. This is the worst. Like, I'm just describing what's going on here. I would love to like simulcast this stuff, but I don't think YouTube would let me. I'm thinking about like getting a mirror or something so you can kind of see what's going on. Because when I go off on a little tangent where I'm just talking shit, and I try to come back to the movie and describing what the hell I'm seeing, it's kind of funny. Not that drinking and beating your wife is funny. I don't want to get you in trouble. But anyway. Some more great camera work here by Dario. There's a scary midget and a woman with a long wiener-like nose. So Harvey Keitel's character, obviously, hopefully dreaming, or this movie just took a left turn that I don't remember it taking. Like I said, it's been quite a few years since I've watched this. I still feel like even watching this that I enjoy Argento's portion of the film more than Romero's. There's just more going on, you know. So now we're in like a Wicker Man-esque ceremony or something coming on here. So I guess Harvey Keitel, I mean, obviously dreaming, having drunk fever dreams. But I think this effect coming up here in just a second is really. I mean, it's a fantastic, well done effect. But it's obviously a take on the Cannibal Holocaust effect, which I've mentioned Cannibal Holocaust a couple times in this movie. That's a weird thread, but let's see. If nothing else, at least this portion is interesting. I remember hearing an interesting, funny story about Harvey Keitel shooting this effect that Savini's told in the past, but I can't remember what it is now off the top of my head. I got no fucking idea what's going on here. Okay, so this midget has a black cat on a noose here. I have no idea what's going on, guys. So there's like a ritual going on. The lady and the black cat. I'm just waiting to see this effect where Harvey Keitel gets pierced. Cannibal Holocaust style. Uh-oh. They found him. I don't know what time period this is supposed to be. Like Middle Ages, something? I don't know. And who could forget Harvey Keitel and Taxi Driver? Another one of my all-time favorites. Scorsese. Okay, so here comes the effect. Excuse me. I'm just burping and shit. Like I said, I think this is definitely one of Savini's more underrated, underappreciated effects work on a film. Because there are a lot of pretty complicated effects in this. He really pulled it off. This is one of them. Up he goes. Spread him. He's up in the air, legs spread. Well, and that tickled. All right. That's an awesome effect, though. I mean, that looks. If you go back in slow mo, when the steak comes through the gooch or the taint, whatever you guys call it, through the taint, through the body, up the neck, and out the mouth, just like in Cannibal Holocaust. But if you slow mo it, you cannot tell the difference between Harvey Keitel, the man, and Harvey Keitel, the mask or dummy or whatever that was. And as the steak comes out the mouth, I mean, it looks legit. And there's Tom Savini with a little cameo there, and some more great effects work here. The woman's mouth completely spread open, teeth removed. I forgot Tom was had a little cameo in this. I guess they're saying he did it. So is that the same detective? No, who is that? Is it the same one from the Romero story? Not Detective Tom Atkins, but his partner. Who is that actor? He looks very, very familiar. Yeah, I'm not sure. Looks familiar, though. Playing the fiddle. That's what we call it in Kentucky. The fiddle. So I guess violin and fiddle are the same thing, just a different way of playing it, but whatever. I'm starting to get uh-oh. I was about to say I was starting to lose a little energy here, but it's like Rod's wife is about to screw this boy. Or whatever's going on here. So this is definitely Pittsburgh. You can tell downtown Pittsburgh here, that building with the sharp stakes. That's what it looks like. The sharp stake pillars is what you call it, I guess. I'm very happy that I've got a chance to finally visit Pittsburgh in the area multiple times now. I've been to Pittsburgh 3 different times now. It's one of those things I've always wanted to do and put off forever and ever and ever. Love Pittsburgh. Try to go at least once a year now, if I can. So this woman's freaking out. I guess she's realizing that the Harvey Keitel character just killed her cat. I don't think they're trying to insinuate that he's the one killing all these women, is it? So yeah, there's the Pittsburgh skyline. This is definitely just Dario having an excuse to shoot Pittsburgh, which I appreciate. So there's Harvey Keitel in that beret again. So yeah, definitely more of an Argento, Argento's version or story in this. Definitely more of a fan of. There's just more going on. more characters. There's more effects. It's just more, it's more entertaining. It's not great. It's not. I wouldn't even say it's one of Argento's better films, but yeah, I just enjoy watching Harvey Keitel and pretty much anything. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to chatting with Grande on Thursday about Romero in the '90s. There's a lot to talk about. Starting with this, 1990 was kind of a busy year for George. He had this. He wrote the Night of the Living Dead remake that Tom Savini directed. He wrote the Cat from Hell story that was in the Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, which was directed by John Harrison. So George had a hand in that. That was filmed in Pittsburgh as well, I believe. So yeah, George had a busy year in 1990. Then did The Dark Half, and then just kind of disappeared into the ether for quite a while, and just cranked out screenplay after screenplay and treatment after treatment. And just for one reason or another, never really got anything else made in the '90s until Bruiser in 2000. But I mean, he was attached to the Resident Evil movie, of course. He did do the commercial over in Japan for Biohazard 2, which is what kind of connected him to the original Resident Evil film. But he also did stuff. He took a shot at the Mummy, which actually went on to be the one with Brendan Fraser, and I think he was working on all kinds of shit, all kinds of like Stephen King projects. I know he was working on some type of pitch for a Night of the Living Dead TV series. And then eventually, he just got sick and tired of being in development hell. Even though he made a shitload of money at the time, he's mentioned, that's he made more money during that period than any other time in his career, which is crazy to think about. But those development deals, very lucrative. So yeah, interesting period of time. Then of course he made the Iron City Ass Kickers proof of concept short film, or whatever you want to call it, which is actually it's one of the first videos I posted on this channel a couple of years ago, I believe. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's pretty funny, and there's a lot of Pittsburgh in it, and there's a lot of George in it. Literally, George is in it. Laurie Cardill, Sarah from Day of the Dead is in it. Kyra Schoen from Night of the Living Dead is in it. It's interesting if you haven't seen it. You're a Romero fan. I think you'll get a kick out of it. Here's a good question. TCCK Films. Would you consider the Evil Dead trilogy to be about zombies? I've always thought of that. Because I remember when I was first discovering all these films and stuff when I was younger, and the infinity of internet, you just kind of look up. There's websites where you can look up a list of, zombie films, And I always saw the Evil Dead movies in there. Actually, the first Evil Dead movie I saw was Army of Darkness, and I bought that under the impression that it was a zombie film because it was on this. I forget where the list was. I mean, it was the early days of the internet where everything was like, what was that? GeoCities or whatever the fuck that was called back in the day. You could these homemade web pages and stuff. But honestly, now thinking about it, I don't consider the Evil Dead trilogy to be zombie films. There are definitely elements to it, but to me, they're more demon possession films, more so than zombie. Because to me, I guess you could call them that because they are basically the living dead, the Deadites. But to me, for me to consider something a zombie film, Me personally, just my opinion. I think something that what makes something more of a zombie film than the actual zombies is is the universe and the way that it's treated. It's the end of the world apocalypse type of thing. That's so. I mean, I guess you could consider it. Um, Consider those zombie films, but to me, I've always just kind of thought of them more as like demon possession films, which pretty much spawned an entire subgenre of its own. Because the demon possession films that I see come out now, like Talk to Me, which is one that A24 just put out not too long ago. I checked out. Um, wasn't a huge fan of it, to be honest with you, but I won't go into that now. And but to me, that's more of an Evil Dead inspired demon possession film than a Exorcist inspired demon possession film. Um, so good question though. I mean that's a really good question that I've actually thought about before in the past. Great question. So I guess the cat is not dead. Harvey Keitel's trying to kill the cat again, and his wife or girlfriend or whatever she is now trying to rescue the cat while Harvey Keitel is staggering down the steps. I don't know if it's because he just got hit in the head with a club or he's boozed up, which seems to be the main idea of his character in this film is that he's an alcoholic, which most artists, struggling artists, are. It seems. It is funny to me that 1990 was the year that there were two movies that George was involved in. That's a great effect. That the knife in the hand, the knife sliding through the hand. That looked awesome. But it is funny that in 1990 there were two separate horror films that Romero was involved in, where it was about a character desperately trying to murder a cat. That's interesting. It's a weird coinky dink. Tales from the Dark Side of the movie. That's one I got to talk about at some point because I love that. To me, that's the real Creepshow 3. Not that whatever the hell that shit was that came out a few years ago was. I think that would be the perfect Creepshow 3. The first one directed by George, second one directed by Michael Warnick, third one directed by John Harrison. Love that. Beautiful cinematography in this, I gotta say. Which anything Argento is involved in is going to have beautiful cinematography. We went over that earlier. That's his calling card. Is just the shots and it's funny because a lot of the times Dario's shots and camera setups and whatnot are really sometimes not appropriate for the scene. Just film terminology or whatnot. Like sometimes he'll just do a shot just because he wants to, and I respect that. He's like, I'm going to make this incredible shot, even though it's completely unnecessary in this context. So Harvey Keitel has just killed his wife. Threw her ass in a bathtub. Now, what is this guy's name? Martin Balsam, I believe. So this guy is playing very stupid here. He hears screaming. He comes over to make sure everything's okay. He walks in. There's blood all over the carpet, and now Harvey Keitel's like, "Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah, cut my foot." Bathtub full of blood. Yeah, you can definitely tell that this was definitely more of an Argento project as opposed to a Romero, just in the quality of what's being made and what's going on here. I still don't think this is a perfect example of what I was just talking about. So, literally, he goes in to pull the plug for something that is not necessary to the story or anything, but just because Argento wanted to do this shot where Keitel reaches into the bathtub, pulls the plug out of the bathtub to drain the water, and Argento makes it a point to literally put the camera from the perspective of the drain and the water coming down the drain hitting the camera. I mean, only Argento. Which he did something similar, I believe, in Opera, I believe, where the water hits the camera. So now, yeah. So I think this is when I was talking about earlier, my appreciation for the Telltale Heart. I think this is inspired by that story where Keitel is kind of building his dead wife into a wall. Now he's trying to sweet talk the neighbors into not snitching. Keitel's such a great actor. I don't know what it is. He's just you can't take your eyes off of him, no matter what he's doing. Even when he's got a beret on and a bow tie, just like in that scene. So now he's building a dummy of his wife in the seat next to him with a picture of her face. This is like some shit right out of Home Alone. This is what Kevin McAllister would do in this situation. Like in the scene in Home Alone when the fucking the robbers drive by and they're having the party and somehow Kevin McAllister is controlling. I don't know. Didn't expect to talk about Home Alone on here tonight, but here we are. So Keitel's trying to give his neighbors the impression that his wife is still alive and everything's okay. They're walking down the road in the rain, and that's fucking hilarious to me. The dummy arms just like going up and down. Holy shit! It looks nothing like a real person. That's Dario as well. Like I've said before, I love Argento, but a lot of the times in his films, you just gotta kind of suspend reality and just kind of go for the ride. Take the ride that he's taking you on. It's his world. Sometimes it can be a little over the top. Man, I have got to take a piss. How much longer is this fucking thing? I usually don't go this long on my streams. I usually try to keep it to about an hour and a half because that seems to be a good time before I start to lose steam and have to take a piss and step out for a smoke. But I am enjoying this. I think I think I'm reaffirmed in thinking that Argento's story is preferable to Romero's, just because I think Argento had more of a passion for this project than George did. To be honest, I think George just was kind of. I think George kind of did this because A, it was a job, it was payday, and B, it was a chance to work with Dario again. I think, of course, Dario, which I did a stream on, George and Dario's relationship a few weeks back. Dario, of course, really the main reason that Dawn of the Dead happened. So they've always had a great relationship. And, of course, even all the way up to Land of the Dead, Dario's daughter, Ozia. Big Ozzy Argento fan. Although Grande was trying to explain something to me about her that I was a little taken back by, but yeah, of course she was in Land of the Dead with George. George and Dario both born in the same year. It's crazy to think George would have turned 83 this year as well. He'd have been closer to turning 84 actually. It's his birthday in February of next year. I really would be shocked to see Argento live to be 100, though. Hey, he's a tiny man. I mean, I always think of the who's this kid with the sleeveless shirt and the fucking. He's supposed to be a kid coming over to take violin lessons from his wife, but he comes over dressed like the fucking guy from Demons at the end of Demons on the motorcycle and with the sword and shit, with the cut sleeves and the. What the fuck was I talking about? I don't remember. Yeah, we're at that point in the night, folks, where my brain's starting to deteriorate. I'm going to be kind of all over the place, so forgive me. Well, I don't remember what I was talking about. Oh yeah, Dario living to 100. Yeah, he's tiny. And I always think of the Kevin Nash quote and ask him why he doesn't expect to live to be 80. He's like, how many 15-year-old Great Danes or something have you ever seen? I don't know. I don't know too much about Great Danes, but that quote always stuck in my head for some reason. I guess because it makes sense. You don't really see too many giant 90-year-olds. It looks like Anthony Michael Hall. Annabelle. I've never noticed the Batman sticker on the violin case that this kid's carrying. And Tim Burton's Batman movie would have come out, what, a year previous to this? So, yeah, they were still in the middle of Batman fever. So I think the kid's suspicious of something. I think we're about to see the zombie cat eating the corpse here in just a second, which is a real animatronic zombie cat. And Tom was not the biggest animatronics guy in the business, so I think he did hire some outside help for that. There's a. I was trying to spot all the videotapes on the shelf there. I did spot Back to the Future. So this is just a more fun movie to watch, just to fucking look and spot the Batman sticker or their movie collection on the shelf there. Oh, there's John Wayne. What else they got? Doctor Strangelove, we just spoke about. Amadeus. Very interesting. Usually you would think in a film like this, it would be books on a bookshelf. But I think it's interesting that Argento went with videotapes instead. Small little pickup there. Billy Crystal, a comics line. Vertigo. Sorry, I'm just reading all the. There's a cat breaking through the wall here, and I'm just concerned with what videotapes are. I bet a lot of those fucking videotapes too would be worth a shit ton of money now too. Well, there's a cat being birthed from the wall. TCCK Films. I'm a big fan of Tim Burton's Batman films. Yeah, I grew up on them, man. I grew up on them. Batman Returns was the one that I watched all the time when I was a kid. It wasn't until years later that I really went back. And a fun thing to do, just as I break my own train of thought here, fun thing to do for the original Batman, watch it in black and white. It plays really, really well as like a superhero film noir movie. It's pretty fun. It almost gives it a completely different tone, but it works really. I don't know. It works really well in black and white because I think that's what Tim Burton was going for with the original Batman, was more of like a film noir type of look. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of the of Batman films in general. I'm not a huge superhero guy. I have no interest in Marvel, DC, comic movie. That's just not my thing. I just never. But Batman was the one superhero. I guess it's because that's the one I grew up on. That I love the new Joker film. I love the Christopher Nolan's Batman films. Batman and Robin, whatever. We'll skip that one. But I really like Batman Forever. I think that's a really underrated film. I know there's like a longer version, the Joel Schumacher original cut out there somewhere. I'd love to see where he gets a little more into Bruce Wayne's past and his issues or whatnot. But yeah, I always loved Batman. Wow, I had no idea that's interesting. Yeah, check it out, man. It's kind of cool to watch. It's the original Batman, Tim Burton's Batman. Even the cars that they drive, some of the set design, the characters' costume design, it looks and feels a lot like an old film noir film from back in the day. It's pretty cool, and mixing that with the Batman superhero element, it's pretty interesting. So I think Harvey Keitel, I think, is about to be exposed here in just 1 second. The detective's back, not Detective Tom Atkins, but this other guy who looks so familiar. I can't think of. Is it John Amos? That sounds right. John Amos. What else is he in? I'm about to get into the IMDb here in a minute because I feel like I've seen John Amos in a thousand things before. John Amos. Yep, that's him. What else is he in? Good Times, Roots, Beastmaster, Come to America, Die Hard 2. He looks familiar from something I've seen like a billion times. Vanishing Point, Cosby Show. He was in Uncut Gems here as recently as 2019. So yeah, he's just one of those actors that you know the face and you've seen him in a billion different things, but I never really knew his name to him. So I think we're coming up on the zombie cat eating the corpse in the wall, which is one shot that I always remember from this movie. Like I said, it's been quite a long time since I've seen this, but a lot of these effects I do remember, which is why I think, like I said earlier, it's one of Savini's most underappreciated and underrated jobs as an effects artist. We just had another shot of that VHS shelf, that collection there. I still have some of my VHSs. I don't have a lot. A lot of them, I bought when I was a kid, and God knows what happened to them. But a lot of the VHSs we watched and had when we were younger were the ones that you'd record. A blank VHS, you could record, 3 movies at what were the speeds? I know there was like SPEP. I don't know. What was the other one? LP, maybe. Those are the ones you could record for 6 hours on. So you could pretty much fit like 3 different movies on at a time. Just waiting for this cat. Yeah, I appreciate everybody hopping on, checking this out tonight. Good seeing some new faces in here. TCCK Films, it's been good chatting with you. Getting to know you a little bit. Glad you hopped on. Handyman, appreciate the help with the metronome reference earlier. Grande, good seeing you in here tonight as well, man. Yeah, I didn't know how, this would be a very popular topic or discussion. It's Two Evil Eyes. I mean, it's literally one of those films that I've never heard anybody ever say that it's their favorite Romero film or favorite Argento film. And I rarely ever hear anybody say that it's a film that they really like. Like I said, it is my least favorite Romero film. Although I do really enjoy this Argento story here. Not bad at all. But the Romero, I mean, there's just, I don't know, man. Like I said, it's a little slow. It's missing some of those elements of Romero that I love. But so yeah, I don't know how much of a ratings and this one will be, but I don't know. Like I said, I do the channel just for the fun of it. It's what the hell I was going to do. I usually try to do a stream pretty much every weekend at some point. I'm probably going to start on Saturday nights instead of Sunday nights because it's football season, and I'm not competing with the NFL. So So yeah, I just kind of I have the stream with Grande coming up on Thursday. I've been doing a lot of research on Romero's films from this time period. This is probably my, like I said, it's my least favorite Romero film. So I thought it'd be a good time just to come on here, hop on, and give it another watch, and just kind of give my thoughts on it as we go through here. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much right where I was before we started it again here. Least favorite Romero film. I like Argento's part of the film better. Um, it's not a terrible film. It's just meh, But yeah, I don't know what I'll be doing next week. As we're coming to the thrilling climax here. But I got some ideas, some cool stuff coming up. Like I said, doing Grande's show on Thursday. Probably got another top 10 down the line. I'm not sure when, but I'm be interested in doing another auction or something at some point. Maybe not anytime super soon, but I don't want to just come on and become a fucking carnival barker every week. I enjoy these type of streams where you're just watching something, just shooting from the hip, coming to different conclusions about things that you never came to before. So we're about to discover this this body here. It's got the pickaxe. This detective looks like Stan Lane or something. He looks like Stan Lane when Stan Lane was not a member of the Midnight Express, but when he was in the WWF in the early '90s as a commentator. Terrible commentator, but a great wrestler though. Nope, there's the body. But yeah, I just love coming out here, stream of conscience. Just love talking about George and Dario. Oh, zombie cat. It's at 2, so there's a little. Oh. So Harvey Keitel's making a run for it. Killing the 2 detectives, and videotapes laying everywhere. He's got to get the handcuffs off. That's all going to shit now. It's all going to pot. There goes the keys. Doorbell rings. It's the neighbors again. Oh, I saw a Clockwork Orange. Another one of my all-time favorite films that I haven't watched in a very, very long time. One of those films I was obsessed with in high school. So it's like Harvey. I don't know what he's. So I guess Keitel. I do remember this stunt now where he hangs out the fucking window with the body of the cop. I don't know if it's a stunt or a dummy or what how they did this here, but and I don't know what he's planning on doing here. He's just kind of. So he's swinging a rope to a tree. This is a very uh-oh. There he goes. Oh! Rope around the neck. Now that's an Argento kill right there. Rope around the neck. Body of the cop hanging there. Pulling him down on the rope. So that's it. Western Pennsylvania Humane Society. The American. Okay, so they're just saying that the cat was not actually killed in this film, so that's good. And now we're getting the end credits here. So yeah, if I were to give this a score, I mean, if I were to give it a score, I guess individually, story wise, for George's story, maybe a 5, maybe a 4. I don't know. It's not, like I said, it's not bad. It's not a bad story at all. Nick Mastandrea, first assistant director here. It's not a bad story. It's not a bad concept. Some of it does work. I do love Detective Tom Atkins, but yes, it's just a little slow. And like I said, I don't even think it's one of George's favorites of his work. There's Ed Lettieri, Bomba, Nick Tallow. God rest his soul. Miss that dude. Some other good news, but yeah, I'd give the Romero portion like a 4, maybe a 5, depending on my mood. And the Argento, I mean, I'd give it a solid 6.5. In the canon of Argento's films, it's not one of his best, but it's definitely not one of his worst. He would far surpass this years later with like Dracula 2000 and shit like that. So, so yeah, I guess overall, this film's probably altogether maybe a 4.5. Good effects work, good acting. Argento's version definitely pulls it up. So 4.5, 5, maybe, I don't know. But like I said, I'd still consider it probably my least favorite Romero film. I'd probably rather even watch Survival of the Dead over this again. Just because Survival of the Dead's at least funny. It's kind of funny that my last 2 commentaries on this channel have been to 2 of George's worst films, but that's what we do here. It's good or bad. We all love George. And I appreciate everybody checking this out tonight. If you were watching at home, let me know what you guys think of Two Evil Eyes. It's one of, like I said, it's one of George's least talked about, probably least popular films. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the film. Like I said, don't know what I'll be doing next weekend on my channel, but I will be on Grinders Graveyard on Thursday, doing Romero in the 90s stream with him. So that'll be a really fun, interesting conversation that I plan on having with him. And so yeah, like I said, give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Even if you don't, give me a like or dislike. I don't fucking care. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate everybody. We just hit over 200 subscribers, and for starting this channel and really focusing on it less than a year ago, and like my goal originally was like maybe I'll get 100 subscribers by the end of the first year. So the fact that I've already hit 200 it's really fucking cool, and I really appreciate it. And that's the whole reason that I wanted to start this channel and do this stuff is, I love talking like TCCK films. I love meeting like-minded people that want to talk about George, and it's like I said, it's not one of those things, especially like me, when you get older and you have a family and a job, and your time is taken up with so much that you barely have time for friends and relationships and stuff anymore. So it's kind of cool to come on here and just kind of chop it up with some like-minded folks. So that's really the whole reason that I do this. So the fact that 200 people have already kind of hopped on board with this already. It's awesome, and it's all for George. And that's my passion. That's what I love to talk about. That's what I collect, obviously. So I appreciate everybody out there checking this out. I'll be back next week with who knows what. But until then, check me out on Thursday on Grandpa's Graveyard, Romero in the 90s. But until then, you guys have a great rest of the night. Get some sleep. Happy football Sunday tomorrow. Go Pack Go. And we'll see you guys then. And as always, stay scared. That was terrible. I was trying to hit a button and say that at the same time. That was just fucking terrible. Let me try that again. Ready? Stay scared.